Boy, that's a big question, and I'll answer it because I have experience in all of that. So the general rule of thumb is when you're starting up a company, the banks will not loan you money. So when you need the money, they will not loan you money. And then when you become very successful, they'll give you all the money in the world, but you don't need their money. So it's a conundrum.
Welcome to the UpFlip podcast, where the best minds in business break down their success into steps you can take right now. I'm your host, Alex Freeman, and today we're talking about starting and growing a business with the legendary Paul Akers. Paul started FastCap in his garage, fixing what bugged him. 24 years later, FastCap is a multi-million-dollar empire launching 30 innovative products every year to distributors in over 40 countries. In this episode, Paul gives us the inside scoop on how to start a business from the ground up. Wondering how to market and advertise your new business or hire and manage employees? Paul will let you in on his answers to these common challenges. He'll even dive into planning and organizing, funding, securing loans, conducting market research, and becoming a better leader. If you're ready for step-by-step guidance on how to bring your business from ideas to launch, keep listening. And subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the groundbreaking business insights we've got lined up for you every week. Let's dive right into it. All right, Paul, first, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Alex.
For any viewers who don't know you, can you talk briefly about FastCap and how you started your business?
Well, basically, I was in my garage about 21 years ago. I was actually a home shop. I was a cabinet maker. I was completing a job that I had to deliver in the morning. And one of the last steps I had to do before I could go in and have dinner and go to bed, it was about 8 o'clock at night, was to cover all the screw holes inside the kitchen cabinets, or it was actually a closet job that I had done. It was all white melamine. People are familiar with the white laminate look. Mm-hmm. And I had a bunch of screw holes from putting on finished end panels and toe kicks and things like that. And I had to cover all those because I didn't like to take those to the job site and let the customer see all these screw holes all over the place. So I wanted it to look right. The conventional way of doing that was to take a little mechanical plastic cap that had a little nib in the center of it and push it into the head of a screw. The problem was if the screw was a little bit embedded too deep in the melamine, it didn't stick very well, and then you had to glue it on with caulking. It was basically a massive pain in the butt. Usually it would take me about 45 minutes to cap off a large job. And I just sat there and said, I don't want to do this. And I thought, how could I make a cap that would be easier to put on there? And I came up with the idea of making a plastic cap that was rigid, still thick, nice material that matched, but had adhesive on the back. So all you do is just peel it off like a sticker and put it on, but it was not sticker thickness, it was thicker. So I thought, wow, if I could come up with a way to do this, that would be great. So at the time, I took a piece of edge banding, the kind of material you put on the edge of a piece of particle board when you're finishing a cabinet, and took a creative memory stamp from my wife in the shape of a Christmas tree, sprayed contact adhesive on the back of it, hit it with a hammer because it took a lot of force to punch through this plastic material I had, and popped it out, and then took this Christmas tree and stuck it over the screw hole. And it worked perfect. And it looked way better than the conventional caps that everybody had been using for the last 25 or 30 years. And I said, wow, that's cool. So that product, I showed it to my rep when my rep came around from Mepla, a German company, and he looked at it, and Al Rook said, God, that's a great idea. I can't believe somebody hadn't thought of that before, but nobody had thought of it. And so I spent the next 3 months trying to figure out how to manufacture that product. It took me 3 months. I had 2 or 3 employees at the time, if I recall. And I said, you got to do everything. You got to build the cabinets, install the cabinets, because I'm going to do nothing but figure out how to make this product. And after 3 months, I figured out how to make the product. I got my first prototype. I took it to a trade show, and I showed it at the trade show, and people liked it. And I started getting orders. And today we have 800 products all over the world, and we're just constantly coming up with new products and innovations for cabinet makers.
Wow, that is an incredible way to get started. Talk to me about that kind of first 3 months where you're trying to figure out how to manufacture the product and how to get it to that next step. How did you quickly build that industry knowledge as an aspiring entrepreneur?
Well, it's very difficult, to be honest with you, because I was a cabinet maker, and the way you make a fast cap has nothing to do with cabinet making. It's a process that requires die cutting and adhesives and lamination and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then on top of that, I made them all out of wood. I made a lot of them out of wood and different veneers and everything. So that part had a commonality. I understood wood a little bit, but how to source all those materials and find those raw components to put everything together, then the machinery and take it out. Basically, it was hell. It was very, very difficult. It was very, very difficult. And everyone I called to get an answer from basically said it can't be done and they don't know how to do it. But I would not accept that for an answer. And I have a lot of funny stories to tell you about that. There's one manufacturer that I went to in Kansas City, and I'm a guitar player, and I always travel with my guitar. And when I went to his plant, he had a machine that he thought would do it. And I would go back in his plant and I would work on the machine for about an hour or two. And then I'd go out in his lobby and I'd sit down and play the guitar. And go, this is the craziest guy I've ever met in my life. And just kind of get my head together and then go back out there and try to challenge it because everything I did was not working very well. And finally, after 2 or 3 days, I got the machine to operate at a reasonable level that I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy this machine and I'm going to continue to work on it. It took me a year after that to perfect the process to where we were productive in the way we did it. So, it was very difficult, and it requires, being an entrepreneur, starting a business requires persistence, a massive amount of it, because you're going to come up against all kinds of obstacles. And most importantly, you're going to come up with a lot of people that are not going to believe in you and think you're crazy, from my mother-in-law to my father-in-law to lots of my friends. I could tell you more stories of my friends telling me that's a stupid idea. Well, today those companies make tens of millions of dollars. I mean, and I'll never forget my PhD friend saying, that's a stupid idea. And I've said, put it up yours, Melody.
Do you think that on the ground experience, that sort of very difficult time, as you described it as hell, is important and or necessary for anyone getting a venture off the ground, or are there other ways to kind of gain the expertise to get a product launched?
Well, the best way to gain the expertise is through other people who are smarter. And we talked about this in that earlier podcast I did with you. You need to be humble enough to ask people, how would you do it? You don't have to be the answer man. So the best way to gain that expertise is by talking to other people who are experienced entrepreneurs who've gone through some hardships and get their advice to navigate this very treacherous and difficult path, is the way I would put it. But the other side of the coin, Alex, is if you don't go through these hardships, you're not going to have what it takes to sustain your company, because things are going to get hard. Now, let me tell you, I remember when 9/11 came around and the economy crashed and nobody was buying anything for a long time. If I hadn't gone through those difficulties, and I don't know if I would have made it through that very rough period.
So FastCap, born of a pretty clear product idea that you recognized a need as a cabinet maker. But say someone wants to start a business, but doesn't necessarily yet have that very clear idea. What are the steps to developing a new product or business? And should they start by analyzing and researching the market, or looking at their own skills and interests?
Well, here's what I would tell people. I learned a very important concept from my patent attorney, and he taught me something that I will never forget for the rest of my life. He said, in order for a utility patent to have validity, there has to be a strong felt need. There has to be some problem that you're solving that society or the marketplace is clamoring for. And so I would tell anybody who's starting a company, it better not be your strong felt need. It better be the marketplace's strong felt need, because I have people pitch me hundreds, if not thousands of ideas, and it's their problem, but it's not the market's problem. Do you follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's their idiosyncrasy. It's not the market's problem. And people really have to be careful with this one, because, I've come up with, I remember I came up with an idea for how to spread slug pellets really effectively, because whenever I sprayed the slug pellets, I live in the Pacific Northwest, there's all these slugs everywhere, and I wanted to disperse that around my rhododendrons or hostas, around my hostas. But I didn't like the way I didn't like reaching in there and spooning it out. It wasn't even, so I came up with this clever little device that when you shake it a little bit, it a little bit gets dispensed because you pull this little trigger, and I spent a lot of money and time developing the prototype, and it's really, really cool for me.
Yeah.
but not for the rest of the world, right? The rest of the world didn't see there was a strong felt need for spreading slug pellet
Yeah.
evenly. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a very deceptive thing because a lot of people who are creative like me or like you, we think we think everybody wants the problem solved that we think are important. That's not the case. And we'll go back to my original statement. A strong felt need. The market has a strong felt need, a problem that needs to be solved in the marketplace.
Yeah, and this is a good moment to remind folks that you've also appeared on our YouTube channel, the UpFlip YouTube channel. Go check it out if you haven't already. Talking about validating ideas, and so what is the best way to find experts who can help validate a new product, or like how do you test if I'm the only one having this problem, or if everybody else needs a new way to spread slug pellets?
Yeah. Well, it's so simple. It's almost unbelievable. And the way we do it, it's all lean. Our last podcast I did with you, we talked about lean manufacturing and lean thinking. So we have a lean method for exactly what you just said. And that is, I have on my phone a Signal chat or a WhatsApp chat or a Voxer chat. It's a quick way to communicate with audio and some videos as well. And I have about 10, 20 beta testers all over the world who I trust as authorities in our field of cabinetry, carpentry, and so forth. And I simply take a quick video of the idea that an vendor sends to me, 60 seconds long, of them showing the product idea. And I send it to them, and the beta testers immediately respond back, not days later, like within 10 minutes, say, yeah, I really like that idea. I would buy that, or no, I wouldn't waste my time on it. So I can get a real clear picture immediately what the market's feeling about a particular product idea.
And as you're developing these products, what point is it worth the money to patent the idea?
Rarely, if ever. So I have lots of patents, and I've spent millions of dollars on patents, and I think they're largely a total waste of time and money. I will explain. If I get a patent, I'm lucky. In today's market with inflation and everything else going on, it used to be about $30,000 to pull off a patent, an effective patent. It might be $50,000 now. I don't even know because I haven't filed for a patent in a long time. The problem is, all that does is give you a piece of paper. So somebody looks at your product and says, "Oh, that guy's making too much money, and I want to try to get into that marketplace." They're going to knock it off, change something, and then you're going to say, "Hey, you're violating my patent." Well, what are you going to do about it? Okay, well, hire an attorney at $500 an hour. That $500 an hour is what I paid attorneys 5 years ago. With inflation, it might be $1,000 an hour. I have no idea what litigation attorneys cost because I don't like attorneys and I don't like dealing with attorneys because they rob you blind. I could go into that whole thing. I have some good attorneys and they're not all bad, but in large measure, it's a big black hole. So the bottom line is all it does is give you the right to launch a lawsuit, that piece of paper, right? And then the minimum, and I'm giving you past tense numbers because this is what it cost me back when I was doing my stupid stuff and suing everybody, right? It cost me just the first blush with any kind of infringement is $30,000. And then you ramp it up for 2 or 3 months, you're at $70,000. And these are 5 to 10-year-old numbers that I'm giving you. So you can probably double them for now, right? So 30,000 first blush, 3 or 4 months into it, you're at 70 grand. A year into it, you're at $250,000. Double all those numbers, probably $500,000. Well, have you got $500,000 to piss away? Guess what? I do, and I'm not going to do it because I'm a smart business guy. I'm not interested in pissing away $500,000 for someone to stop selling my product and then thinking the court's going to reward me because they don't reward you. It's so screwed up. It's unbelievable. It's not a good place, and it's not where you want to spend your time and effort as an entrepreneur. Where you want to spend your time and effort as an entrepreneur is developing products that you can put on the market that change people's lives, and you want to improve and change those products as rapidly as possible so your competition is left exhausted trying to keep up with you. That's the best route, not a patent or a piece of paper that says patent number 5678910. Nonsense.
That makes me think of a John Wooden quote that I'm going to butcher here, but that he didn't care if the other team had his playbook. They were just going to execute better than him. Is that kind of the concept there?
Precisely. Big John Wooden fan. Exactly what the key is.
So with the wonderful patent conversation out of the way, I'd love to talk about funding, finding funding, and developing business plans. How do you fund a business when you're getting started? And do you need a detailed business plan? And how detailed of a business plan do you need for banks and investors?
Boy, that's a big question, and I'll answer it because I have experience in all of that. So the general rule of thumb is when you're starting up a company, the banks will not loan you money. So when you need the money, they will not loan you money. And then when you become very successful, they'll give you all the money in the world, but you don't need their money. So it's a conundrum. So generally, what most entrepreneurs have to do is go to private investors, people who are more predisposed to risk, because the banks are not going to do that. So I got a $250,000 line from the bank. I tell the story in my book, and the bank president gave it to me because he came by my operation and he said he'd never seen a better operated company in his entire banking career. And he gave it to me just on the basis of the fact that the company was run so well. Not because I had an MBA or I knew what I was doing, I understood how to read a balance sheet or understood a profit and loss, not because of any of that. He just said, God, if anybody's running a company at this level, you got to have your act together. So I'm not afraid to give you the $250,000 line. But most people are not afforded that luxury. And so funding it you might have to go to aunts, uncles, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, and beg, borrow, and plead. That's the typical way that we see a lot of small startups go. Then there's the next level up, and you get some private capital people who invest in companies, and they want a nice lion's share of your company if it becomes successful. I'm totally against that. I'm a sole proprietor. I'm the sole owner of my company. And I don't have any partners, and I don't want any partners. One marriage is enough, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm not a big proponent of partners. Now, lots of people that have successful partnerships. I'm not one that would tell anybody to have a partner. I think you're absolutely out of your gourd. You should do it on your own and figure it out on your own. The reason why people want partners, and this is my humble opinion, this is not necessarily accurate, is because people are insecure. They feel like they can't do it. They can't figure it out. So they want somebody else to hold their hand through the process on some level of expertise that they have that the other person doesn't have. And I personally think anybody can learn to do whatever it needs to do without giving up ownership and giving up control, because control of your company is very, very critical. Control gives you agility, and agility is super important to be able to move effectively through the marketplace. With a minute you have to start fighting with your partner about whether or not they want to make this decision, they don't want to make this decision, everything becomes exponentially more complicated.
Once a small business owner has gotten that startup capital, what's the best way for them to utilize that money for fast growth? How do they most efficiently put their potentially limited funds to use?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna say something again that maybe you might not like or listeners might like. Anybody who's looking for fast growth is a fool. It's not the key to running a business. I could be a $300, $400, $500 million company today, blindfolded easily, but I'm not. Deliberately, I'm not. Because I chose excellence over growth. So everybody wants to invest in my company. Everyone wants to give me money so I could ramp up and scale up. I could care less about it. I care about quality of life. I care about the fact that when you walk into my facility, it's unbelievable. When you look at our balance sheet, it's unbelievable. When you look at every measurement in our company, every measurement, it's unbelievable. So would you rather have unbelievable small or okay big? Growth is not the equation. It's excellence. It's operational excellence. It is for me, and I learned that lesson because I borrowed money in the beginning, that $250,000 line, and I started buying advertising in magazines, and I started building POP, point of purchase displays for all my distributors, and I pissed away that money so fast it was unbelievable, and I said, where's all that money? You spent it all on advertising, you spent it all on marketing, but it hasn't come back in. Oh yeah, you scaled your company up, but it's not more profitable. Your company's 3 times bigger than it was before you got that money, but you're not making more money. You're just spending more money.
So how does a small business control those costs and limit overhead in the beginning?
Well, and that goes back to our previous conversation that we talked about lean manufacturing, the Toyota production system, and 2-second lean, what my book's about. If you are a fanatic about eliminating waste in processes, you will by default control the cost. It's impossible not to, because you're looking at the small processes that are occurring in your company, and you're making sure they're done efficiently with a minimal amount of waste and defects. And so I always like to quote my CFO. He says, Paul, I don't know what you're doing, but you just keep doing it, because I've never seen a company perform like this in my entire life. I've never seen all the leading indicators, financial indicators, ever as good as yours. So how do you control costs? By focusing on the elimination of waste, the development of your people to eliminate waste throughout the entire organization.
So if you walked into in your average small business today, what are the spots where you think you would spot them overspending, and where is the waste just sort of right at the surface level for a small business?
Oh gosh, it's so easy. It's just like shooting fish in a barrel. It's just crazy. It's so crazy. Well, I'll contrast my company with every other company in the world, okay? And you walk into my company, again, very successful, 40 countries, tens of millions of dollars of business, and millions of dollars of profit, very successful, right? And everybody's at stand-up desks that are built out of pipe and plywood desktops. And there's no wall between the factory floor and the office. And there's no fancy wall coverings. There's no fancy chairs. There's no fancy furniture. It's beautiful. It's super clean, but there's nothing fancy. We don't waste all of our money and resources, and we don't charge our customer so we can have, the Rockefeller Center as the corporate headquarters for FastCap. We are a lean, mean, fight machine, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful environment, but it's very, very simple. So that you walk. So the answer to your question is, you walk into the office and you see all the fancy desks, the chairs, the furniture. You see the isolation of the people in the office from the people on the shop floor. It's just a total joke.
I want to shift back a little bit to the early days for you, as you were choosing suppliers for your products when you were first getting started. How did you make those choices? How did you vet those potential suppliers?
Oh, suppliers, boy, that was very difficult, because I didn't understand lean manufacturing at the time. So anybody that gave me the best price was the best supplier, right? Mm-hmm. And now that's not the way I do it at all anymore. I always do it on the most reliable, the one that can produce the highest quality with the least defects and give me what I want just in time. Because most people don't understand that defects cost you an enormous amount of money. Every time you produce a defect or there's a problem, it costs 10 times more than doing it right the first time. So if you have to treat someone in the emergency room, it costs 10 times more to fix that cut than it would to go to the doctor's office and pay a $70 doctor visit than a $1,000 emergency room visit. So defects cost 10 times more. So you really want to focus on eliminating these defects and to suppliers that have the capacity to deliver high quality products, because ultimately if they charge you 5 cents more for the product, but they don't produce any defects and all the products is really good, it's actually way less than the guy who's charging you 5 cents less and producing 10% defects. So the answer to your question in short for your listeners is, if you choose your vendors based on price, you're a fool.
And we want to be the least amount of foolish as possible every day.
Right. Absolutely.
With the current kind of labor market right now, there's a lot of challenges in the labor market for companies, especially small businesses looking to hire. Where would you recommend that small businesses look for reliable talent right now? And how should they attract top candidates?
Well, the best way to get talent is from within, in terms of having people that work for you tell their brothers, sisters, uncles, friends that your company's hiring, because they're keenly aware of the type of person and the culture that a person needs to bring to the table to be successful at your company. Just putting an ad in a magazine or a newspaper, periodical, or whatever it is, or on the internet is, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. I much prefer to have my people bring people to me. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing is, obviously, nowadays, where we're getting a lot of our talent, to be honest with you, is from police officers that have quit and firefighters that have quit and military that have quit because of all the nonsense people are having to go through with the vaccinations and all the other nonsense. And that's probably the only good thing that's come out of this, is we have this, massive pool of high quality, skilled people to choose from now, because they're all looking for alternate jobs, from nurses. I mean, it's crazy to choose from, people who are educated and pretty thoughtful people. So right now, it's not so difficult for us because of that. Prior to this whole, I'm getting a little political here, prior to this whole vaccination thing, it was near impossible because everybody was home getting a stimulus check and sitting on their ass, so nobody wanted to work. And so it was very difficult actually to get people for a while. But in general, what we do is we rely on our people to bring those people to us. And then we look at the community college, we look at the local high schools, we look at places like that. But to be honest with you, the real answer, Alex, is this: operational excellence. Our company is so extraordinary and recognized around the world for who we are. We don't really have to, it's not really a big deal to find good people for us. People find us because we're a magnet for excellence. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Is that one of the key traits of having high employee retention and creating a culture not only where people want to come to work, but where people want to bring more people to work to bring you those referrals? Is that operational excellence the key to that?
I think it is. I think beyond that, there's one level that's a little more nuanced than operational excellence, and that is, I have discovered in life, and I think most people would concur with me, the most important thing for any human being is to matter. That what they do every day matters, that somebody cares about what they're doing, they're concerned about their opinions, and they're thinking about things, and they're not just a number. And so when you create a culture where people matter, their opinions matter, their ideas matter, what they think matters, then you're going to have a higher level of retention. You're going to have a higher level of engagement. And that's what the lean model is so beautiful about, because it respects the dignity of work and humanity. And it says, God created us to be intelligent people to solve problems. And if the owner or leader of a company looks at his people that way, then they're going to have a different level of engagement of the people that are part of the organization, because they're going to feel that.
On our last podcast that we did together, you mentioned that FastCap doesn't have an HR department.
Mm-hmm.
There are certainly going to be some listeners and business leaders who are hesitant to do away with some traditional HR roles. We'd love to hear you briefly describe how things like employee benefits administration, time off requests, that sort of stuff gets done at FastCap without your traditional HR department.
Well, we applied lean to all those things. So, when you want time off, you just simply fill out a little piece of paper and you turn it in to my wife or whoever's handling that particular thing. You clear it with the supervisor of your department to make sure there's no conflicts and that they're not understaffed at that particular time. And it's done. It's very simple. In terms of employee handbooks, we have a beautiful employee handbook that's constantly being updated, and we just hand it to the person, and then we review every page with the new employee, new hire. We don't have an HR person do that. We have the supervisors do that in the department, and they're very clear on that. So it's not some obscure person that knows the way we conduct ourselves as employees. The actual supervisors, the people that you're reporting to, knows what's going on, and it's reviewed it with them. So we have no need for an HR department. I mean, absolutely zero. As I told you in the last podcast, when somebody wants to work for us, we don't accept resumes. They're all lies. We don't even care what they say. We don't accept them. Or you have to take your phone, hold it horizontally, and shoot a 60-second to 2-minute video. Tell me about yourself. If we like what we see, we bring you in for an interview. If we still like what you see, we offer you a job for one day. We pay you. We bring in the 5 people that work with you at the end of the day. If they like you 100%, all 5 of them say yes, we bring you back for 5 days. We watch you very carefully. At the end of 5 days, we move you all throughout the departments, all different areas, working with all different people. We bring all the people in. We say 100%. Are we going to hire this person? If not everybody agrees, we don't hire them. It's that simple. It's just like the simplest, leanest process in the world. So the very people that are working with you and are going to work with you make the decision on whether or not they want to work with you. How much more effective could that be than some HR person saying, "Hey, Martha, you're going to go work with Mary, and Mary's and Martha's an idiot." I mean, the very people working with them get to figure this out. The bottom line is, we let these people can determine it. They're really smart. Our people really know what people are all about.
Yeah, that's incredible, and a great work environment, I think. But this does bring us to our Fan Blitz questions, Paul. These come from our YouTube channel, which, listeners, if you haven't checked us out already, make sure you do check out UpFlip on YouTube. All right, here we go. Going to be blitzed questions, 20 seconds each. Here we go. Scott Daly is asking, how would you suggest starting a product company, in his case, eco-friendly, from the ground up without taking on investors or loans?
Slowly but surely. So the key is to scale at the rate which you can fund it instead of saying, I need to scale faster. Because when you scale at that rate, you're very careful with the way you spend your money. But the minute you have borrowed money, it's called OPM, other people's money. There are 3 or 4 ways to spend money effectively and efficiently. The first way is you earn the money and you spend the money on yourself. The second way is you earn the money and spend the money on someone else. Then a level of efficiency goes down. They may not want what you're going to buy them. The next level is you earn the money and give the money to someone else and you let them buy something. And the fourth level is you give it to the government and it's total chaos. So whenever there's other people's money being spent, the efficiency goes down dramatically. So I would caution anybody against getting too wrapped up in loans and things like that. I think you should try to organically grow your company. I mean, that's basically what I did for the first 3 years. And then finally, I got a $250,000 line of credit, as I talk about in my book. But to be honest with you, it was a mistake. I squandered the money on marketing and advertising and things like that. And I just basically pissed away $250,000. It was the stupidest thing because it wasn't money that I earned. Prior to that, I had to be very frugal because there was no magic tree that I could dig a gold pot out of. Every dime I spent, I earned.
Stephen Cannon is asking, what would be an obvious red flag that would make you avoid opening a business in a specific sector?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, initially, it would be an oversaturated market. So, for instance, if you want to develop a new USB plug for your bed, to plug in to charge your phones, go on Google and see that there are about 1,000 different options for that right now. And if you want to go fight it out in that space, go knock yourself out. But it isn't where I would go. I like to go places where there's not a lot of people that are developing ideas for a particular segment or swath. So that would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I wouldn't particularly try to battle it out with large conglomerates. I wouldn't try to let's say you want to develop a new cordless screw gun that's way more effective, and you're going to compete against Bosch and DeWalt and Milwaukee and Makita. Not the brightest thing in the world because, they have a market share, they have distribution. That's going to be a little bit of a difficult animal to tackle. So those are 2 things right off the top of my head. A saturated marketplace or a marketplace where some big behemoths are in there, and it's a little difficult to break into that one.
Nicholas Bauman is asking, and you actually, for this question, you did talk about this a little bit on our previous podcast as well. So Nicholas and other listeners, I do recommend you go back and listen to that episode as well. But how do you determine pricing on a new product? A certain margin or what people are willing to pay?
Well, I think the latter answer is the more appropriate one, is what people are willing to pay. So what we do is we will go to our customer base, and let's say we have a beta testers. I think I've already mentioned that, 20 or 30 beta testers all over the world, and we'll present the product to them, and without even telling them a number, said, so if the rep walked into your cabinet shop tomorrow and said, hey, here's this new product, and you liked it, what price would they tell you that you felt good opening your wallet right now? You wouldn't really have to think too hard about it. You say, oh, that's $35. I'll take 3 of them. What price would you feel good about? Would you feel like the company was being fair to you? They were not gouging you, but being fair, and there's good value. And we listen to that price very, very carefully, and we price accordingly.
Nicholas had one other question for you. What are your thoughts on open book management and profit sharing?
I think it's a terrible idea. And that is not a typical answer that you're going to get from people. Everyone's, oh, yeah, I let everyone know what I make. Hell no. Let me explain. In order to be an owner of a company, the amount of sacrifice that you go through, the financial peril that you put your family through is so intense, it's unbelievable. And when your company starts making $1 million a year or $2 million a year, and you have an employee that's making $45,000 a year, and they're looking that you're making $1 million a year, it doesn't jive with them. They can't. well, if he's making $1 million a year, why can't he pay me $65,000 a year? You know why? Because you're not worth $65,000 a year. And if you're worth $65,000 a year, you can bet your butt you'd be paying you'd be making $65,000 a year. They don't know what it took to get to that. They don't know about the 18 and 20-hour days. They don't know about waking up at 4 a.m. They don't know about the lawsuits that come against you from people malpractice, from injuring themselves with your products and then suing you for $10 million, and you the sleepless nights staying up with attorneys and dealing with all this BS that gets pitched. They have no clue about any of that because they're not having to deal with that. But you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way to do it is if you want to make the money that the boss is making, you got to be the boss.
That's exactly right.
That's going to do it for our Fan Blitz questions. Thank you for those. I got a few more questions before we wrap up this episode as well. Listeners, make sure if you've got a question for any of our guests, either on the podcast and our YouTube channel, throw it in the comments. We'll bring it into a future episode, and we'll get great gold like what Paul has given us here already. But Paul, is there a certain leadership or management style that you think works best for today's small business owners? And how would you describe your own management style?
Shop floor. The best leadership style is being on the shop floor with your people and listening to the problems and issues they have and helping them solve their problems. My number one goal in life is just unlocking the time and the resources for my people's lives to get better, for their jobs to improve, for their work to become more fluid, and just make their life better. That's all I care about. That is my number one focus. And that's a shop floor leadership style. And it works perfect for me. And I love it because people appreciate how much I care about them.
When you were on our YouTube channel, you talked about the importance of having experienced counselors and mentors as a new business owner. Where should someone go to find a mentor if they don't have options in their professional network?
So, I read a book, and I read a book a week, and one of the books that changed my life, you asked me in the last podcast, what were some important books, and I didn't mention this book, and it's very important because I could list 10 books right now that are very influential, but one is called The Richest Man in Babylon. And The Richest Man in Babylon, the premise of the book is if you want to know how to bake bread, you go to the local baker. You don't go to the butcher. You go to the experts and you go to the people that are really, really skilled. So you find mentors by only working with people who are really skilled and have a track record of excellence in their particular field. So, you go to your friend and you want to know, how do you invest your money in the stock market? And you got some guy that's staying up late at night and, type it in digital models, and he's playing with $5,000 to $10,000 portfolio, and he's making a couple $1,000s here and a couple $1,000 there by selling high, all that nonsense, right? You could go to that person, or you could go to the guy who's got $5 million in holding in the stock market, or $10 million, and his net worth has just continually been accumulating and doing better and better. And you say, hey, David Long, because David Long's one of the guys I'm thinking of right now. Is a close friend of mine. And I say, David, how did you build the wealth that you have? He goes, well, Paul, it's really simple. I did A, B, and C. Or am I going to go to the guy who's playing around with penny stocks, $5,000 or $10,000, or am I going to go to a David Long? You go to people who know what the hell they're doing. And don't mess around with people who are dabbling and kind of, I kind of know how to play the stock market. You don't know anything about the stock market, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's there's no better way to put that. That's an excellent way to offer that advice. What is the best thing a new business can do to set themselves up for stable, consistent growth? What are the traits of a scalable business?
Living within their means. In other words, not overextending themselves. I think that's probably the biggest thing that people do wrong is they get these grandiose ideas that they've got to have the nice office furniture, they've got to have this latest machine in order to compete, and they overextend themselves, and the financial burden becomes too high, and they start cutting corners here and there because they got to make the payments. I mean, just living within your means and not growing too fast. I see people do it all the time.
As we talk about growth, I have a question here that's phrased about setting growth goals, but my impression is you may tell me that thinking about the growth is not the way to do it. But
That's
can you talk
exactly
us
right.
through your process for setting business goals and evaluating progress?
Well, this would be a good example. So if you were to look at my financial statement, the SG&A, you would look at our expenses, our expenses, whether it be the electricity, whether it be overhead costs, operation for the building, all the expenses that go into running a company. If the percentage of that is going down and your profits are going up, you're probably managing your company right. But this is not what most companies are doing. Those costs are accelerating at a greater rate than the profit. So they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they become less and less profitable. When just the opposite should happen, you get bigger and bigger, you get more profitable, and the SG&A, the cost of doing business, should go down. So our labor rate, for instance, in our company, I'm not going to show the number because nobody would believe me if I told you to. Everyone would say I'm lying, but I don't care about what they think. But I'm not going to tell you the number. The number is better than any Fortune 500 company. So the per man hour of every employee, what they produce per hour is growing month over month, year over year for the entire history of our company. That's unprecedented.
Wow.
That doesn't happen. And that happens because we're a lean organization. We're focused on the elimination of waste, and everyone's involved in that elimination of waste. Everybody's involved in producing higher quality products with less defects in a more efficient fashion. Now, our people are rewarded deeply for doing that, not because if they make an improvement, we give them a little prize or we give them a $5 bonus. Our people are paid 30, 50% more than industry standards. We have the best 401k. We have full medical benefits, fully paid for. They don't pay for anything. We have a full gym in our facility. We pay for things nonstop for them, right? So we have this incredible work environment because we can afford to. We can afford to do these things because their efficiency is so high.
As you build that efficiency, what tools are you using now to keep your company efficient and adding in new systems? What tools are you using?
No, there's only one tool, and we're so myopic, it's unbelievable. And we're such simpletons in the way we approach our business. It's crazy. It's just lean. It's just 2-second lean. Everybody makes small improvements every day to everything they're doing. We grow our people. We have a 3S time in the morning. We 3S, sweep, sort, and standardize. Our facility is absolutely immaculate. Everything is just super clear and easy, visual controls on everything. We have a half-hour morning meeting where we develop our people. We study history. We study the Constitution. We look at lean videos from people around the world so we can get other creative ideas and be stimulated. We talk about our problems. We make sure every department is on time, 2 hours, fax to truck. We look at these simple KPIs, if you will. And that's it. And that's all we do. Everything else can go to hell in the handbasket. We don't care about it. It's all nonsense.
You've had a lot of success on YouTube with viral marketing. How did you build that following on social media as a business? And what's your top tip for growing a brand reputation through social media?
I'll tell you a funny story that I've never told before to anyone. I've been interviewed so many times I can't even see straight, but this is the story I've never told anybody. You want to know how you build a viral environment on YouTube? You buy an airplane. And you're going, what the hell does that have to do with anything? When I was starting my company, I had a sales force all over the United States, and I needed to get to them, and I would go to the airport, and I'd wait for hours and cancel flights and everything. So I figured I'd become a pilot. So I got my pilot's license. I got my instrument-rated pilot. I bought my first plane. Then I bought a second plane. I had 2 planes, a full-time A&P, a nice hangar, everything beautiful, all the accoutrements of a very successful entrepreneur. I had it all, right? And then all of a sudden, one day I pulled out my phone, and I posted, I made a video of one of my products on my phone, holding the phone horizontally, and I posted it on YouTube, and I sent the link to my distributor, and my distributor looked at it and said, "Whoa, that's a cool product. I'll take 1,000 of those." And I said, wait a second. I need to get in my $1 million plane and fly down there and pitch that to you. You're one stupid fool, Paul. Sold the planes, pulled out my phone, and started making videos on YouTube.
So I guess here's the real question here for you. Do you market your products in other ways, or just utilizing social media and YouTube?
We depend almost solely on our customers telling other customers about our products. And we do that. We have a YouTube channel. We have a really cool marketing concept. We basically pull out our phone and we make a video on iMovie on our phone and we post it. And then then we put it on our YouTube channel. Then the orders start coming in. So that YouTube video is both on YouTube and on our website. So they go to our website, they can click on the video and watch the product being used. Then our customers get it. Then they show how they're using it. We take those same videos, we post them on our YouTube channel and put it on our webpage. So the customers now see customers using the product, which is very authentic, right? That's a very, very clever way to do it, right? That's basically our marketing program. And then once a week, we send out something called an e-blast. So we have a simple email that we send out that says, hey, Bob, hey, Martha, have you ever thought about solving this problem? A question mark. So it's one sentence and a question mark. Watch the video. And then a hyperlink, watch the video. It's not these big, long 5-paragraph emails that everyone else sends out. It's one sentence. Watch the video. People watch the video. They pass the email on to other people. The rest is history. It's that simple.
You know, there's a beautiful trend here of just keep it simple, do the simple thing that I think a lot of people get wrong. And maybe this is the answer to the final question here, Paul. But what's one important thing that new small business owners tend to do wrong when they first start? Why is it a problem? And how can they do it better?
They think they're smart. Yeah, I've talked to so many people that have walked into my office. I don't have an office, but walk in to talk to me. And they tell me about all their grandiose plans instead of coming in and say, Paul, this is what I want to do. What do you think? What should I do? Instead of being humble and just asking a successful person, what would you do? That's the way I conduct myself. I have tons of people around me that are way more successful than me, way more. And I say to them, Alex, what would you do? Aiden, what would you do? Can you give me your opinion, Bob? What would you do? They just think they're so smart and they got all the answers and they're the only one in the world that has a salient solution to the problem. They couldn't possibly think that there'd be some deep insight from some people who are a little bit older than them.
Paul, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for all of the great advice that you've offered.
My pleasure.
Listeners, do you want to hear more from Paul Akers? Check out his other interview videos on the UpFlip YouTube channel for extra insights and strategies. And make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see updates, giveaway announcements, and other info as we post it. That's going to do it for this week on the UpFlip podcast. We'll be back every Monday morning with more insights and information to share.